Welcome to the Feria Techcast, where we bring you all things science, engineering, technology, and innovation. Our guest today is Rob Broadhead, a veteran software architect, entrepreneur, and mentor with over 30 years in technology and business. He is the founder of RB Consulting and the voice behind the Develpreneur podcast, where he helps developers and business leaders turn ideas into real world success. Rob's passion is helping people build better, smarter systems, stronger teams, and more meaningful careers. So, Rob, it's an honor to have you on the show today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
All right, I am excited to have you here. So, quickly, let's get things started. Rob, with over 30 years in the industry, you've seen countless tech trends come and go. What would you say is one fundamental principle of building good software that has remained unchanged through all of this?
I think it really is. It's engineering in general is building software. And so having a good plan and being able to stick to it. Part of that is knowing what your plan is knowing what your goal is, and then really digging into how are you going to get there. Software is it can be a little unforgiving sometimes if you don't keep up with the details. And that's really the key. Whether it was 50 years ago or 6 years ago when people were using punch cards, or a couple of years ago or last week when you're building software, what you needed to have to start with was a really good set of requirements to understand what you were building, so that as you were moving forward, you were actually building things that match that, as opposed to sometimes if you don't have the requirements, then you end up sort of building something where you're guessing at what you're building instead of actually doing so. It'd be like building a house and starting out not knowing if you're going to build 1 bedroom or 5 bedrooms or a kitchen or 18 kitchens or a bathroom or 15 bathrooms. Those kinds of things are critical to know from the start, and always have been.
Great, that's really insightful. So, can you quickly give us an overview of what RB Consulting is all about?
We help companies leverage technology better. Our goal is to sit down with somebody, whether it's an entrepreneur or a small business or a large business, and talk about where they're at, what are their goals. It's sort of a reality check. We call it a technology assessment.
Hmm.
There are other names for it in the industry, but essentially what we're going to do is sit down and talk about where you're at and what you're doing. What is your technology footprint? What are your plans? And then help you build a roadmap to do your business better. With that roadmap, we can help you execute it or walk you through it. But the goal is to do the things that you're doing for your business better, faster, cheaper, so that you're going to have happier customers and you're going to make more money at the end of the day.
All right. So, you shifted RB Consulting's focus to help clients avoid IT pitfalls through better planning. So, what's the most common and costly pitfall you often see companies step into, and what's the early warning sign that they're heading for it?
I think most often, actually, it really comes down to letting things just sort of continue on the path that they're on. Technology is constantly evolving and changing, and there's so many new things out there that the solution that was maybe the perfect solution for your company a year or two ago, especially 5 or 10 years ago, is not likely to be the best solution right now. And a
Hmm.
lot of times what happens is people just, you get some systems, you get some vendors in there, and then you just stick with them. You're not really doing those checkups to say, do I really need this? Do I need to keep using this? Is this really the best solution for my company as we've grown? And really the warning signs from that are often it's where you're just, if somebody asks you, what does your company do? What kind of technology does your company use? Or how does your company do business in the most competitive way? And you have answers that are vague, like, well, we've got this product we've had for a few years, or we've got these processes that we've been running. The same people have been running the same thing for 5 or 10 or 50 years. Whenever your thoughts about the growth and the progress of your company is essentially along the lines of, well, we're just going to keep going the same way we have been, then you may be in a situation where you should like step back, take a look at what you're doing and see if, okay, maybe you are on the path that you need to be on, but maybe there's some things that you can change so you can do things better, faster, and not get left behind while your competition is, adopting the newest things that are out there.
Okay, so let's talk about your technology assessment. For the engineers listening, what does that process actually look like under the hood? Is it like a doctor's checkup for a business tech stack, looking at vital signs and symptoms? I'd like to hear your thoughts on this.
It is sort of like a doctor's checkup, but it's really more like a financial assessment. If you were to go into a financial advisor and talk to them about where you're at, you're going to talk to them about things, which is sort of, businesses have some of the same things. There's liabilities. There's things like licenses maybe that you have. There's maybe certain things that you're worried about, like risk. There's maybe revenue streams that are, the positive cash flow and things like that. It's the same thing, in a financial audit, you're going to have those kinds of situations. They're going to ask you like, are you insured? How big is your family? What are your expenses? What is your income? And with the business, with the technology assessment, we sort of do the same. We're going to talk to a company about where are you at? How big are you? Where do you want to go? What is your vision for the future? What are your pain points today? What are some of the things that are your struggles right now? Where are you maybe seeing some lapses in quality? Maybe you're losing customers. Maybe you're getting complaints. Maybe you're hearing nothing and you're trying to figure out, how do I actually get feedback from my customers? There's a wide range of things that are out there. And so it really starts with, just like a doctor would, they're going to talk to you about like, how you doing? How you feeling? How's your life? How's your work? And that's sort of what we do at the business. Is it's like, how are things doing? Are you growing? Are you maintaining? Are you seeing growth from your customers? Are you getting good feedback, bad feedback? And from there, then we dig into some of the tools that they're using, because we're going to talk about, well, how are you getting this communication back? How are you communicating things out? How do you build your products or your services? How do you provide these things? How do you track them? How do you interact with your employees and your customers and your vendors? And so all of those pieces are part of what you sort of stir that up, and that becomes the technology assessment.
Fantastic. So I am curious about the developreneur concept of a podcast. Yeah. So what is the key mindset shift a talented developer needs to have to make them become a successful entrepreneur or a strategic leader within a company?
It really comes to, from the developreneur concept, is that the best developers also have an entrepreneurial mindset, and that's really comes down to, their problem solvers. And they're not
Mm,
just solving a technology problem, they're solving business problems. So your goal, if you want your career to really skyrocket, to really be successful as a software developer,
hmm
writing code is not the key to the end. What's actually the key to the end is being able to take a business problem of some sort and then create a software solution for it. It's like a word processor application. Well, somebody first realized that it's very helpful to write documents and being able to format them and add fonts and sizes and make them pretty and things like that. And so that was where somebody then built it. But if a software developer, if somebody hadn't first said, hey, here's the business problem and here's what the solution looks like, then the code wouldn't have mattered. And that's what Developreneur is all about, is it's talking about not only the latest technology and what's going on in the technology world, but also talking about how it's a lot of it is conversations around the struggles of startups and small businesses and even large businesses, and what are some of the problems and headaches that people run into, and then how do you find solutions for them, or what are some common solutions, and then even sometimes what are solutions that failed, what are some of the things that we've seen done out in the real world that haven't worked and need to be reassigned, reassessed, so that we can get a solution that actually works.
All right. So, Rob, you help turn technology from a cost center into a growth driver. So can you share a story of a client where a simple technological change, not just a massive overhaul, unlocked a surprising amount of growth or efficiency?
We've had a couple of customers. I'm always amazed at some of the customers we've come across where they have a process that is solid, and usually it's something that has been there for a while, and it's going to be usually like maybe they're using Excel spreadsheets or some very like not high end software solutions, but they've built this from the start, from the ground up. That it's always been a part of them, and so they've built these solutions, and then over time they've grown. So maybe they initially had, 100 customers to deal with, but now they've got 100,000 customers to deal with. But they get to these growth points, and there's a point where that solution just doesn't scale anymore. And often it's been as simple as almost a lift and shift, is where we take the solution they have and as best we do, keep it exactly as it is, but move it into a different technology. Maybe we go from a spreadsheet to a database table, for example. And then suddenly what you see is something that took, could take sometimes hours of manual entry, and then connecting out to the system and uploads and downloads and things like that. And now we give them a screen that allows several people to be working on the data at the same time. They're not having to copy files around. You've got something now that is built to do maybe some of the reporting and analytics that they're running on it. And the biggest ones are like reports. I've seen so many times where there are reports that people would kick off overnight because they would take hours to run, and then we convert their system over. And it's not an overhaul. It's really just taking the same thing and putting it into retouching it a little bit, refactoring it a little bit. And the next thing you know, it's running in minutes. And those are and they're also it's very fun to have something like that. It's very rewarding to be able to make changes like that and see such dramatic changes for a customer.
All right. So for the technical founders and developers in our audience, what is your framework for deciding what to build in-house versus what to buy or outsource when resources are limited?
That is really a good question. And it's unfortunately, like most consulting and recommendations, it's one of those that it starts with, well, it depends. But a lot of times what we're looking at is really, it's not necessarily where you're at today as much as it is where you're going to be. Because that solution you build today or that you buy today is going to serve a certain purpose. But then 6 months from now, or a year from now, or 2, 3 years from now, hopefully you're still using that solution as a business. And depending on how you grow, that may or may not be something that makes sense for you to do yourself. If it's something where you're going to continuously need customizations and touching and updates and things like that, then by all means, a lot of times it's going to say, it's probably better to do that internally. If it's something where really you just need this to just work and you've got other things to worry about, you're not going to be able maybe to hire a technology team to be able to support your own custom software, then we're going to lean you towards finding a solution that a vendor's got somewhere. And maybe there is some customization that goes on, but when you build your own, you're almost always going to spend a lot of time just, coming back and touching it, updates and doing things like that. And if that's what your business needs, that's great. But if it doesn't, and then sometimes that's actually the worst thing, because your business doesn't need steady customization, they need stability. And in cases like that, we're probably going to push you towards, just go buy something, make it work, maybe adjust a few processes. So even if it's not exactly the perfect fit for you, it gives you what you need, and you can focus on your business instead of the technology side of it.
Right. That was really insightful, Rob. So you mentor a lot of developers. What is the single most important habit you see in developers who consistently grow in their careers versus those who plateau?
It seems almost obvious, I guess, but the best developers are lifelong learners. They're always looking to do what they do better, whether it
Mm,
is the language that they're in and learning how to use that better to keep up with the latest changes, to utilize the latest frameworks, or whether it is to find the latest other environments and languages and frameworks and solutions that are out there. They're basically the best developers are sort of like scientists in general, where you never really have you're never really done. You're always going back and trying to find a better, faster, more improved solution.
yeah.
You don't sit on your back and say, okay, I got that done. Instead, you say, all right, I got that done, but now let's see if I can do that better. Let's see if I can do that cheaper. Let's see if I can reproduce that and solve another similar problem.
All right. That was a really insightful one. So, with the rise of AI, what would you say is a practical, non-hype way that a small or medium-sized business can use this technology right now to get a real return on investment?
I have found that a lot of the entrepreneurs and business leaders I've talked to, I think the best thing that you can get out of AI right now is using it as sort of a sounding board. A lot of people refer to having like a chat with AI where they're, talking to AI about a topic, and you can ask questions to it, things like that. And I found a lot of times that you will get whatever your topic is. Marketing and branding has always been great because it's sort of like, well, what should be our theme? What should be our approach? What should be, how would I solve this problem? What are some of the best ways to solve this problem? Those kinds of things you're going to get responses back a lot of times that are a little bit, you get a few that are like, yeah, I expected that, but then you're almost always going to get one or two that are out there a little bit. Now, it may be AI just going off the rails, but sometimes it's the kind of answer that makes you think, basically makes you think outside of the box. It's some sort of an answer where you're like, wow, I would have never really thought of that. And maybe initially even you reject it. You're like, well, that has nothing to do with it. And then as you think about it more, you're going to realize, oh no, wait, that actually is a different perspective on what I'm trying to do. So while it also does, it's great doing spell checks and grammar checks and some basic, having a second set of eyes. So if you're putting something out there like an email, you can send it to them and, an AI and say, hey, is this grammatically correct? Did I miss something? It's great to have it as sort of a second set of eyes, but it's also, I think your best bet is going to be using it as a source from some other ideas and some different ways to think about some of the things that you're approaching and tackling.
All right. So looking back at your own journey from a hands-on developer to a founder and mentor, what has been the most surprising lesson about leadership that you didn't expect to learn?
That's a good question. I think the thing that shocked me, I guess, the most or surprised me the most about leadership it is more about. I think when I started out, I thought leadership was more about the leader themselves, and really leadership is more about the team that they're working with, the people that they lead. If the leader, there are virtues and things like that that you can instill in your team as a leader, but if you're not being impacted by the team, if you're not working with the team, if you're not really treating them as individuals and finding the best ways for them to work together, then you're probably not going to get the best team. It really is about allowing the people that you lead to be the best versions of themselves. I think when you do that, that's when leaders are the best, is when they're freeing their team to be exactly what they need to be and finding the best ways to mix and match the skills and backgrounds of the team, as opposed to them just trying to lay down a template and say, okay, everybody, this is how we this is the process we must follow.
Hmm, interesting. So for a team that feels stuck with a legacy system, what would you say is the first step, the first less risky step they can take to begin modernizing without bringing the whole business to a halt?
Actually, a lot of times with the legacy system, I found the best thing that you can do, that's your first step, is actually make sure that you document and have test regression tests around that system.
Hmm.
Because if you're going to move out of that, then what you want to do is be able to verify when you get to the new, this new thing that you're building, verify that it actually does the same things, the legacy system did, plus whatever changes you want it to make. And then it becomes, once you've got that, then usually you're going to be able to find some low hanging fruits. You're going to be able to find some processes, some features, some functions that the legacy system does that you can essentially either transfer off of that system or stop doing in that system and then build a new solution for it. And so now you've got this sort of big legacy system, but now you're starting to build out these small, this thing that starts small, but starts growing, which is essentially transferring the legacy system into the new system. It's very difficult to do. It's always a lot easier to just say, start from scratch, build something without having to worry about that legacy system. But once you've got the legacy system, it's, a lot of it comes back to being successful, comes back to really understanding the legacy system, and then finding the best ways to slowly transition off, because it's, if you try to just rip the band-aid off, it's usually not going to work with the legacy system. There's going to just be too much that's going to be lost. And the personal side of it, you've got all these people that have used the legacy system, they're comfortable with it. If you completely replace it overnight, then you're often going to fail just because people they're not comfortable with that level of change.
All right. So, Rob, I read on your bio that you are also passionate about travels and wine. So, do these interests outside of tech influence your problem solving and creative thinking when you are back at the keyboard? If so, then how?
That's interesting. I don't know that I'm not sure how much it does. I think the travel side of it, some of the things I've done for travel, a lot of actually AI, a lot of what I've adopted into my technology approach to using AI came from before doing AI research on a little bit on my love of wine and a love of places to go and restaurants and traveling and things like that. And some of the things I learned while I was using AI and even search engines to get some of that information has fed back into the technology side where I really
Mm,
sort of, I guess, practice those skills in my personal life. And then as I'll get them, improve them and get them to a point where I really understand how to utilize this tool, then I can do it in the technology world.
interesting. So, if you could give just one piece of advice to every new graduate entering into the software field today, what would it be?
It would be, learn as much as you can.
Mm,
There's a lot out there, and don't get disappointed, don't get down because you don't know everything, because nobody does. But just, if every day you can learn something new, if you can just grow your knowledge a little bit, then over time you're going to get to a point where you're going to have just a vast amount of knowledge, and you're still never going to know anything. There's always going to be everything. There's always going to be tons that you can learn. But what you do is you start building that foundation. And the great part about that is that it is a foundation. And so you end up finding that you can learn faster and more as you get further along because things aren't completely new to you anymore. They're similar to something else, And so now instead of having to start from scratch almost in that knowledge, now you can build on some of the knowledge pieces you already have. So we talk about tangential skills and experiences, and these are the things where you do something and you get very good at it, and it's close enough to something else that you can shift gears, and then you suddenly are able to do that. For example, it'd be like if you're a really good, football, soccer player, and you ran, really good, really fast, then maybe that could translate to also being a short or a long distance runner, or vice versa. If you're a track star, you might be able to be really good, playing soccer or, basketball or things like that, depending on what your skill set is. And it's the same thing for knowledge and technologists and anybody that wants to be, that's starting into their developer career. Oh, and of course, listen to Developreneur would be the other thing. It's like, hang out with us and we'll give you a lot of good advice.
great. So, in your work, which spans from writing code to shaping business strategy, so what does the word innovation truly mean to you now?
Oh, innovation to me is really, it is taking a new step. It is doing something that is a little bit out of, it's out of your comfort zone. I guess it's out of what is known. Innovation is saying, hey, we haven't explored that area, and so let's go explore it. And that's really where innovation comes from. It's looking at something differently. It's looking at it's a new problem. It's looking at a problem differently. It's, going out and seeing, sometimes looking for problems where there aren't any yet. It's like, hey, this looks really good, but maybe there's something underneath the surface. And innovation it's that fearless step into the unknown and figuring out how you're gonna survive or how you're gonna solve within whatever that new environment is.
All right, that's a really interesting one there. Another innovative way to see the meaning of the word innovation. So, finally, Rob, for our listeners who want to identify hidden inefficiencies in their own system, where can they go to get your resources or learn more about your frameworks or strategy, or perhaps just connect with you and follow your journey?
Well, the best place to go is RB Consulting homepage, which is rb-sns.com. You can reach me at rob at rb-sns.com. I would love to, I'm always happy to, schedule a call or anything like that. And on the website, there's a way to jump on my calendar and schedule a Zoom call. We also have, if you go there, you'll see links to it, but also if you go to rb-sns.com/product.php, we've got a nice little brief of our sort of shortest, our mini tech assessment product where you can sit down with a couple hours of us doing an hour of us doing discovery, an hour of presentation, maybe a few days between that time as we put together a recommendation and a roadmap for your company to see where you guys can go to be the most successful.
Fantastic. So it's been a really insightful conversation with you today, Rob, and I'm really excited to have you on the show.
All right. Well, thank you so much. This has been great. I've enjoyed being here. Those are great questions.
All right.